I won't read the whole article, but it does say this right here. It says, Recovery Day is an annual celebration of the power of recovery, sponsored by the Vermont Association for Mental Health and Addiction Recovery. All right, welcome back, everybody. You're watching or listening to Position Recovery Podcast. I'm your host, Jeremy Grogan. I forgot to say this earlier, but if you would like to support us in a meaningful way, head on over to patreon.com/position. You can become a member and get exclusive content, members-only content. We'll update you on all of the progress that we've made towards the content that we're trying to create for those of you that are working out your addictions. But welcome back. So this is our news segment. Zach loves this segment. I love this segment. I think I like to drag it out because we never know what we're going to talk about.
Every time you do the intro, I just keep thinking in my head, like, you can catch us on all your favorite and least favorite streaming platforms.
You can. Catch us on your favorite and least favorite podcast platforms. So we have I found this article. Now, we're in Oregon, but this article is for those of you who are from Vermont, and I think it's really cool. The headline for this article is Governor Scott proclaims February 17th as Recovery Day in Vermont. Today. That's today, guys. This is like live news. I won't read the whole article, but it does say this right here. It says Recovery Day is an annual celebration of the power of recovery, sponsored by the Vermont Association for Mental Health and Addiction Recovery and its partners. An event typically occurs at the Vermont State House, but due to the pandemic, it's occurring online this year. So this just gave me, like, obviously, I think this is more of, the people that are putting this on and behind it are more of that traditional, like, recovery rehab thing, like we were talking about digital recovery. But the point that they're making, this is a news article. It's good news because, we get a lot of bad news, and I'm love to hear this good news. I just wanted to get your thoughts, guys, on what you think about Vermont having an actual day called Recovery Day.
Yeah, I think it's amazing. I think it's awesome. And here's why. It's because I think that we overlook the small victories way too easily. And we have to celebrate every small victory, every step, whether it's, I'm 2 hours or I'm 20 years. It doesn't matter what it is that you are. Maybe it's just like, hey, I recognize that that's an issue for me. Even just the recognition. Hello, rat of denial, right? Mm-hmm. So every step, recognizing every step and celebrating every step is huge.
Yeah,
absolutely.
That's huge. I was just thinking, because I'm like, man, this is the governor, right?
Yeah, the governor.
The governor. I'm like, man, I
Proclaims.
love that. Yep, because I'm like, that having something like that happen, like setting a whole day aside for your state. It's like, that doesn't happen from some guy that's not in touch with his own recovery community. Yeah. So I'm like, props to that governor to actually caring for people that aren't the upper class. And like, you know what I'm saying? And so also it's like, obviously within the program they have, he had to have seen some success, because most, honestly, what blankets most of recovery from what I've seen in the big governmental programs is a lot of not success. Totally. A lot. And, we see that, especially because we have ties to someone that's the jail chaplain here in our local community. And it sucks. How often do you see the same people in there? You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And I bet our local drug court and ADAPT, you name it, hates seeing the same people in there every stinking year or whatever. And that's, but what I think is amazing is obviously he's gotten some testimony. He's had to have heard something, an amazing story of some kind that went, you know what, dude? The whole state has to celebrate this. And I'm like, yes, absolutely. So
I got a couple of quotes. Let me read a couple of quotes. It says, quote, "This is just one small way to help reduce the stigma associated with mental illness and substance use disorder, which we know affect millions of people and their families," said Governor Scott. So what do you guys think about that?
Spot on.
Yeah.
I think you worded it beautifully.
Stigma. So the word that pops out to me is the stigma associated with it.
Yeah, I think that there's even a perception with those who may not have struggled with addiction in the forms that many coming out in recovery have struggled with, that it's an us and them.
Yes, we talked about that last week.
Did you? That's awesome. So it's an us and them, and it's almost like you're like two species apart from each other, and it's so not the case. And so seeing this and hearing this and watching what this governor of Vermont is doing, I'm like, dude, kudos to you, because what you're doing is you're stripping away that perception of us and them, and it gives a shoulder to shoulder, like, hey, I'm coming alongside of you and I'm going to walk with you and I'm supporting you. And so it's no longer a get your crap together and then maybe we'll have a conversation. It's like, I'm recognizing, I'm seeing, and I'm going to walk with you in this.
That's awesome. What do you think about the stigma that I think, because we talked a little bit about this last week, where about the recovery is not mainstream enough, and so people, it's a them and those or us versus them thing. What do you think that this does to help kind of solve that?
Man, it just changes the culture. It's a step.
Oh, that's really good.
And all I can think of is actually, in a way, our church. I'm not trying to toot our own horn, but we're kind of considered the weird church in town because,
true that.
And actually, some people, it's not true, but some people think we're just a recovery church. And like, well, you could say that, but what they're saying is that we only allow people that struggle with addictions in our church, and that's not true. I can just tell you right now, that's not true. But what that's showing me and what that's showing us is that. For example, a lot of people that come into recovery don't believe in Christ, but they come to our church. Why? Because it's connection. They're actually getting genuine people that connect. And honestly, I've actually never witnessed us cramming "you better get saved" down someone's throat ever. Yeah. And it's, where it's like, you better get saved and that'll actually launch you into your next part of recovery. It's going to be a natural byproduct of you just being around people that are walking it out, just like what Hollie said. And in a way, that's how we shifted our culture. And that's how our community, we're actually watching it change right now. Our community is changing. And I can confidently say we have one of the biggest hands in that here, because where we're seeing the change is from people that have been directly related with us, and we're just loving people into freedom, and we're not telling them it has to be through saying the Lord's Prayer. There's some things that will be an obvious byproduct, like to actually have real transformation beyond just basic sobriety. I believe you're going to have some spiritual awakening to some point, but they're not going to want that. They're not going to get that until they want it, and I'm not going to make them want it.
Sure.
But I am going to live it out, and people will go, oh my gosh, I want what's in that guy's life.
Yeah.
And then they're going to start asking questions. They're going to want what we call more. They're going to want more to have more fruit in their life.
Yeah.
So.
Totally. So there's one last quote here. I'm going to read that, and then let's talk about this a little bit. So he goes on to say, more importantly, highlighting this day also sends a message to those who are... hold on, sorry. Sends a message to those who are struggling that there's hope, and that there are many of us who care about you. Recovery is possible, and we want to do all we can to help you get there. This is like the governor, state-sponsored voice saying, you're not forgotten, that we care about you. What do you guys think about that?
I think it's beautiful, because, like, honestly, all I've known, I mean, I'm very biased because I come from Oregon, and I'm not trying to mean mouth anyone here, but what gets put across in Oregon is, how do we deal with recovery community? Man, if we could just shove them somewhere, if we could just have a place where they could set up their tents and then just live there, that's fine, because obviously we've tried to get them out of our state and we can't. That's the mentality of recovery. And because when I say recovery, everyone thinks homeless people in Oregon, and so that's the mentality in Oregon. But for a governor to come out and be like, especially in 2020 and 2021 and everything, all the crap that's happening, especially governmentally, when you have someone come out and say, hey, guess what? You're not forgotten. Not just the general population. We're talking about a specific group of population, even though it's a lot of people. We're talking about a group of population that never gets any attention.
Yeah.
And like, no one's really talking about really how the pandemic really affected the recovery community, because what did we see as people that literally walk hand in hand with people in recovery? We saw meetings shut down.
Yep.
We saw people not getting drug tested anymore. We saw shelters shut down. So it's like, now we're in midwinter, and I'm like, no one's going anywhere. I sure as heck hope they're okay, because and unfortunately, what have we seen? We've seen a lot of drug overdoses, and we have relapse personally too. Seeing a lot of that from people in our community, and it's not okay. Right. But seeing stuff like that, someone that has an authority level that influences that area of our world, say, guess what? You exist to me. You matter to me so much that my state will forever remember this. Man, dude, that's a huge statement. That's massive.
Props, Governor Scott. Don't even know who you are, dude.
Huge.
Doesn't even matter what party you're part of,
We're
dude.
gonna join you. Let's just say that February 17th is for Oregon too.
Yeah, I'll claim that. We'll write that down, and every year we'll just say, hey, it's part of Recovery Day.
Come on.